Hi, this is Bill Hartzer, and this is the Digital Marketing with Bill Hartzer podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of having Kevin Rowe from PureLINQ here, and we're going to talk today a little bit about link building and links and link issues and so forth. So, welcome, Kevin. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into linking and dealing specifically with links.
Yeah. So I started out SEO. I got into SEO around 2009. Teaching myself SEO, just like I think a lot of
Sure.
SEOs get started.
Yeah.
The old web CEO training tutorials back in the day. And I said I was doing a lot of work for enterprise level clients and agencies throughout New York City and Chicago, and worked on a lot of bigger clients like Coca-Cola, Siemens, Citrix, etc. And doing a lot of SEO, digital marketing, advanced web analytics. And I realized that a lot of our SEO programs, the ones that went really well, were the ones we did link building in. Right. So
Sure.
it's one of those things that are really hard to do. It's extremely time consuming, but when you do it right, it's very impactful.
Yep.
Because there's four components to an SEO program, I think: technical SEO, content SEO, SEO analytics and tracking, and then link building. The link building was the
Yep.
one we were missing. So started doing link building, and then I noticed it took up all of our time, all of the team's time to do link building. So as a result, we had to outsource. I realized when we were outsourcing what the model was that people had, and I just started developing out those resources in-house in early 2018.
Okay.
So we built out, so after that, I realized how much everybody was having the same problem I was having in SEO, which is I can't build links fast enough or links that will impact my program to improve ranking, organic traffic, and leads sales.
Sure.
So for me, I noticed there was a missing element in the market, which was a good link building program. So I started building it, and then today we have PureLINQ. Opened doors on PureLINQ in 2018, and we've had about somewhere around 3,000% growth since I started the company.
Sounds great. So we're talking about link building. There's so many different kinds of I guess parts of or ways to do link building from, we talk, you've heard about, broken link building and whereas, where you just try and find links that are broken on the web and replace it with content, and do some outreach and so forth. Then there's the influencer outreach and blogger outreach to try and get links from bloggers and mentions. Certainly, there's your own, or just there's expired domains. You buying expired domains, putting up a new, putting up a site on there. There's obviously kind of on the black hat side. There are private blog networks where essentially you are creating your own websites and linking them back to either client sites or your own sites or linking them together and so forth. Uh, what type of link building, does PureLINQ really concentrate on?
So it's like a form of online PR. So we built a database of
Okay.
about 60,000 independent authors, influencers, and bloggers.
Sure.
And so with those relationships, we build relationships with the blogs in order to get our links. So we typically,
Right.
90% of our programs only reach out to the independent, they're not PBNs or networks, independent blogs that are inside of our database. Um,
Okay.
and so within that, there's various ways that you can get links. Sometimes you can pay publishers and they will place an article on their site for you. You can do that. But that's tricky. Like as we've discussed, that's kind of a tricky thing, because if you're doing that and you're doing it at scale, that could actually have a negative effect instead of a positive effect. But it
Sure.
does work sometimes. I mean, it does. You just got to be cautious. Major brands really can't do that one, but small startups and aggressive growth companies can possibly explore that option. And then the online PR, where you create content, or maybe a guest blogging, you might want to consider it guest blogging, where you create
Yep.
content and distribute that on blogs, or content marketing approach and online PR. I think they're one and the same. where you reach out to a publisher with a pitch and maybe a paragraph. Inside that paragraph, you put a link, and then a lot of times they'll just take that paragraph and plug it into their article while they're writing it.
Sure. So it's really just, obviously, part of it is certainly identifying those people first, ahead of time, and I imagine some of it is also, kind of monitoring their sites as well, as far as, making sure that the sites that you're out, the people you're outreaching to that are, they don't, they don't have, any link issues or penalties or anything like that. And certainly, and so it is, I know that you have your system, and you've mentioned to me, privately that it's a system that you've built. There are options also like Pitchbox and BuzzStream and so forth that you can essentially, is an outreach management program like that, where some of them you put in a keyword and or a topic, and it helps you identify sites that where you could potentially get a link or potentially do the outreach. Whereas they'll pull the data like domain authority and trust flow and those numbers, if you will, and those metrics, and then help you identify by finding contact information on their sites and finding, whether it's from who is information or a contact, email address, and connect their social media profiles as well. And then obviously you do the outreach emails and send those emails directly out. So in your efforts, are you doing everything by email, or do you also, in some cases I've actually picked up the phone and called because I didn't have a contact information for that site, and called and found the site owner. So how do you handle it? Is it all done by email, pretty much?
It's actually, a lot of it's done through our system. If they're in our database, we can use our system to do manage a lot of that. So the reason is the sheer volume of link building that we do. It couldn't be managed through phone calls.
Sure.
So we use our tool, our database, and we have a software I built specifically help us manage finding and vetting, through and asserting what the quality of the site is. And then right now, but our tool, like if you use a Pitchbox, Pitchbox is great. I think it's a good tool. It's just you don't have relationships, is what we found. Our Pitchbox programs, or you want to use, you can use Pitchbox, Ninja Outreach, I believe, or Outreach Ninja, among others. Sure. Typically, your response rate could fall anywhere from 1% to 5% is your response rates.
Okay.
After I started building out PureLINQ, and this is only a tool right now we use internally. We don't make it available to the public, but our response rate are 90 to 95% now.
Okay, that's great. And it sounds like they're responding though because you have the relationships obviously with them, with those publishers or their site owners and so forth. That and that's a lot of what it's a lot. It's a big part of it, especially with the link building process. Wanted to ask you, recently we had, I guess, come up this March 1st of this year, where Google has said, okay, now we are looking at, links that have these new attributes on them, where the sponsored or UGC attributes that are supposed to be placed on links. Are you seeing any impact or positive or negative of that change?
Yeah, nothing right now. So I think what you mean is that they'll have to add a little bit tag on their anchors.
Yep.
Excuse me, on
those
their
links.
The links code.
Yes.
And you have to do it if it's a sponsored piece of content. So if somebody's paying you to put that article on your website, you should be marking sponsored, user, well, you kind of user generated content is a little bit different, but the sponsored tag is,
Sure.
You have to they're supposed to market. And a lot of publishers right now, I don't think it's taken an impact big time right now. I think
Mm-hmm.
in a year, maybe 2 years, when it really kind of snowballs, right now it's a hot topic, certainly. When it really starts to snowball, I think you're going to find it harder to get links. Right now, it's still pretty easy to
Yep.
get links, relatively. Not as easy as it was 10 years ago, but it's,
Sure.
it's definitely, it's not hard to get links if you know what you're doing, and you have a strong content production process. But I think we're not having any lower response rates from publishers or anything like that. But Google is more aggressively sending out manual penalties or stripping the value of all the links on a client site. Excuse me, a publisher
Yep.
site, rather, not a client site, not our clients, but on publisher sites. And that's
Okay.
the problem right now. So I think that's going to escalate a little bit further.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's the impact is going to be you're going to have access to less links. Maybe it could be in 6 months or a year, but I know it's going to happen. And then the other part is now it's a little bit trickier. It's harder to understand when the links are going to have value, and that's always been a problem. But I think it's exacerbating now based on Google's recent way of handling sponsored content. So I think that what is happening right now is you need to have a process for vetting all of those sites,
Sure.
and understanding if they are actually still passing link value, and that's hard to do. What I do, I just simply look into SEMrush. I see if their traffic has tanked ever since Google has started rolling out those manual penalties on publishers, specifically on publishers. And so if the publisher's traffic has been tanking for a couple of months, there's a good chance that it may have been. I mean, there's a lot of other variables. You really got to dive into the site to understand what's happening. But I think that's the one big impact that we're seeing right now is some sites are not having actual passing any value, and thus all your effort is useless if you can't identify the sites that are actually going to have an impact on ranking. And it's going to get worse. I think it's going to get harder.
So what are you seeing as far as timing? So I get a new link or I get, say 5 or 10 new links that are really good quality links. How long is it going to take before I actually see any ranking, any ranking boost? Is it fairly quickly? Are we talking hours, days, or is it more weeks or months by the time we see it, we see impacts? I know it's a question, probably a loaded question, but obviously it depends.
Yep.
We hear that a lot. But what's your take? Have you seen, a site get a really good link and all of a sudden it really helps very quickly, or are we talking, I've actually heard people say that, oh, well, you get a few new links and those links won't count for 9 months. Somebody has actually told me that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually heard that in the past, little while, that you get a new link and, oh, well, that link needs to be there for 9 months before it's going to count.
Yeah.
There's so much, misinformation out there. What is your take on it?
So you're right, it depends. But the variables
Yep.
of which it depends on, I think, are a little more clear than they used to be, just maybe for me, but so
Sure.
it's the how competitive the niche is. So is the keyword high, like education. So if you want to rank for online bachelor's degree, no, you're not going to
Yep.
rank with 2 links in a month. You want to stay, it's all about consistency. With
Sure.
those types of programs, it's not that it takes 9 months for them to work. It's just that consistency of link building, doing it month over month, and doing it strategically. And I think Google sees that consistency, and that's what happens when it's a longer term program. The shorter term programs, when you see the jump in rankings to page 1. So I do what's called a visibility analysis. So we go into use SEMrush. We sometimes use advanced web ranking or AWR cloud. I'm old school, so AWR is kind of what I got started on. And the visibility analysis is simply this. You go through all your keywords and your pages on your site. You see which ranks on page 2, 3, or 4. And then find keywords that are low competition, high search volume to some degree. Those are the ones I have a tendency to see short-term impact on. So that's why when I say depends, that's what it means to me. Now within that segment, that group, again, it does vary. Sometimes you get one link and it blows up. Now, if it's when you can do the analysis based like the way I mentioned, as I just mentioned. Now, when you're getting into like insurance industry, if you're getting into certainly hospitality, which is a very competitive market, or if you're in like luxury e-commerce or any sort of e-commerce really, say diamond rings, for example, you want to rank number 1 for the word wedding rings. I have found in similar situations to that, when you're trying to get category page level links, or sometimes product page level links, or or very similar types of content, those have a tendency to take longer, and you need to be more consistent. Now, when you do an article-based link building, so getting links towards articles, and that's your goal, is to build your site authority. So if you're doing link building, the best way to do link building is focus on long-term and build your site authority. I know nobody wants to hear that. The reality is that works. It's consistency over time works the best for the longest term growth, and even short, not necessarily quarterly growth, but annual and biannual growth, yes. And so with the when you're doing an article-based stuff, what I tend to see is not one keyword ranks, immediately overnight, but what I've seen quick results on is your articles rank for more long tail keywords more quickly. So, for example, you have an article about I don't want to say anything in healthcare right now, because that's it's so hard to do anything with the medic update. But let's say shoes, blue shoes, and you have an article about 15 variations of blue shoes. Well, it ranks for the word blue shoe on page 2, and that's all it ranked for. After you do link building, you would expect that it would rank for hundreds of variations of the word blue shoes, best blue shoes, blue shoe ideas, how to get blue shoes. I'm spurting off keywords at random.
Dark blue shoes, light blue shoes, so forth.
Size 12 blue shoes. Yeah. That's been the biggest impact. The short-term impact, I actually think that's really cool, but the short-term impact on articles definitely tends to be a little bit quicker. But any sort of like high search volume money terms that you're looking, I think what's happening is there's a contextuality bubble. And so you want to be the most contextual site around that term. So blue shoes, so you have a whole site around blue shoes. Well, at a certain point, you become more contextually relevant than another site. And I think that takes, in any given topic or category, I think that if you're consistent, looking at about 6 months worth of effort for the long term, that's when you start to hit a maturity phase in contextuality, I believe. I think that's what's happening. That's why you see roughly like around 4 to 6 months on any given program. When a full-blown link building program, you're probably going to start to see some serious ranking improvements in your money terms and very significant traffic changes for long tail keywords.
So another question, exact match anchor text, or a combination of, what are you looking for? I mean, what type of links as far as anchor text goes? Are you still looking for exact match, as you build links, or are you looking for, kind of, I personally prefer a combination of, not just exact match, but I prefer actually a link that may have the keyword plus the brand name in it. So if it's rather than saying SEO consultants and linking it to Hartzler.com, I would have Hartzler SEO consultant, or SEO consultants Hartzler, or something that has the brand and the keyword in there.
Yep. So I consider there to be several variations of anchor text, and then a combination of both. So you have branded anchor text, Bill Hartzler.
Sure.
You have the thematic, which I also group in keyword-based anchor text. So that's, you want to be SEO consultant, Texas, for example. And then you have combinations of the two, what you just stated. Then you have the raw URL. So it'd be, billhartzer.com/killer SEO services, And then
Sure.
you have a call to action type anchor text, which is click here, read more, learn more, etc.
Yep.
And determining which variations you should have, there's no magic sauce. However, you need to analyze the search engines, the top ranking sites in the search engines. I'm publishing an article right now explaining exactly the analysis on Search Engine Journal, how I do this. I'm just giving it to everybody because I think it's cool. The industry needs to know
Sure.
it. So my process, though, is to find out the keyword that you want to rank for, the keywords, usually dozens or hundreds, and
Yeah.
then you can go into any sort of keyword ranking tool. I use AWR, Advanced Web Ranking. Upload your list, and then you download a list of all the sites that rank for that term, or those terms.
Okay.
So now you're going to have a full list of sites that rank for those terms. I filter down that list to find the ones that rank the most and the most consistently across more keywords.
Yep.
And then I go to Ahrefs. Ahrefs is my favorite link analysis tool, but we use Ahrefs, Moz, and Majestic together just because it's more holistic. They're different databases.
Sure.
They give you a better picture. And then from there, I download all the anchor text data across all the keywords, develop a little pivot table in Excel or Google Sheets, whatever you'd like to do.
Okay.
And then that's going to give you a distribution. And so you're actually going to, you do want to categorize it yourself, but you want to see like, of the top ranking sites, do I see that we're getting more brand anchor text in that? Or do we see that we're getting very heavily, most of the ranking sites are not brand, but they're a keyword-rich anchor text. For example, in the coupon industry, you'll notice a lot of the coupon sites that rank, a lot of the coupon pages that rank for like, let's say, Dick's Sporting Goods coupon codes. They actually have the words Dick's Sporting Goods coupon codes in their anchor text, and they rank really well for that. So in that industry, you can do that. Now when you get into hospitality, hospitality is a little less fickle too, or insurance. You want a little bit, what I've noticed from my analysis in those industries is they do include keywords, but then they're more brand related. So it depends on the industry, vertical, the type of business. But that analysis I just recommended will help you identify what type of anchor text profile your link building should have.
So you think it's actually, question is, do you think it's actually Google that's kind of mandating which ones, it kind of in as an algorithmically, or do you think it's something that it's just the industry itself and how they tend to link is mandating, that change between being being more branded in a certain, more branded in one industry as anchor text, or is it, where or it versus like coupons more exact match.
Mm-hmm.
You think Google's doing that kind of algorithmically, or do you think that's more, it's just what's natural for that particular industry?
I think that it's what's natural for that industry, but Google's rank brain algorithm, so the machine learning component to their algorithm, I think what that's doing is it looks at all of the sites in the industry, and like for any given keyword or keyword group rather, and they're saying this is what a link profile looks like for the best sites in that. And then they say, all of a sudden it just snowballs from there. And I think that RankBrain now all of a sudden sees, all right, there's a ton of sites out there that have this link profile in for coupon, for example. And it's the algorithm by default is saying that looks natural because most of the sites in this industry that are trusted have that link profile. And that's why I think other verticals as well don't do it. I think it's what's happening in the vertical, like the couponing space are going link building like crazy.
Yep.
Anything like the resume space, online resume builders, online resume space, that's huge. All those big brands that are doing that, they do a lot of link building, and they will integrate more exact match, so they'll get away with it now. But when you get into education, like online universities that probably may or may not do link building as much as like Phoenix University used to or Kaplan University used to.
Sure.
Which is both of those companies. I'm sure they were doing it completely legitimately and legally, and completely over the, white hat, versions of it. But I think what's happened was just that those people in certain industries saw it. They saw what was happening. They noticed it was working, and it just became part of that industry. And you have to do link building in certain industries now. Even in e-commerce, the same thing. I think in e-commerce over the years, there's been a lot of link building, and Google. I think Google focuses on certain markets specifically, certain keyword segments and keyword groups. So like payday loans, we know Google is targeting payday loan keywords for spammers because it's big there. So I think it's a mixture of both. Google knows what's going on. They're making a conscious effort to do it. It's partly algorithmic from rank varying or other components of their algorithm to reverse engineer what's happening in the industry and what good natural link profile actually looks like. And a lot of that's being influenced, I think, by the link building that happens in these different verticals and has happened for years.
I know there are, so on the same, I guess on the flip side, there are certain industries where, so let's say I'll say an obscure B2B industry where sites traditionally do not do any SEO. They don't do any, not only do they not really do any SEO to their sites, but there's sites out there in industries where they don't, and they don't even do much link building. So if one of the sites, for example, has, starts to do exact match anchor text in a lot of the links to try and do some SEO, then it looks unnatural. It looks like, okay, all these sites in this industry, they don't really link with exact match anchor text with the keywords they want to rank for. And if all of a sudden one particular site tends to have all these new links with this exact match anchor text, then there definitely can be an issue there.
That's good.
And so it's kind of the opposite of what you were describing, is that there are certain so I do think that it depends on the industry very specifically. And a lot, especially in some B2B areas where a lot of the overall SEO efforts should be more on the site itself, and maybe even internal linking, and doing a lot of internal linking, even exact match anchor text in internal links, and that's where a site would do, for example, have blog posts, and just going through the blog posts and linking blog posts to the services pages and doing internal linking can have an effect. But when you actually need to look at these link profiles of just like you're describing, and I really look forward to seeing your article and information about that kind of method of looking at multiple sites in that industry, figuring out what kind of the link profiles are of those particular main sites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you're spot on. B2B industry. Imagine that if you saw a B2B B2B product or like an industrial product, which they don't do much link building there, and then all of a sudden a site comes up and a bunch of their articles has exact match anchor text pointing to it. Google's going to know something's up, and it's just and if you have the ability to actually do that, you're probably doing something black hat anyway. If you're really fully controlling 100% of your anchor text, or at least maybe gray hat, or you're very, very strategic and you just put a ton of effort into your work. But I think that those are major signals. If something weird happens, it's like, if you're in a snowstorm and somebody's walking around outside in shorts, something's wrong with that guy. We got to go check on him.
Yep, sure. I'm just about out of time, so thanks again for taking some time this afternoon and speak with me about links. How can we get in touch with you, and what's your availability as far as taking on new clients and so forth?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. I try to post as much as possible on Twitter _ Kevin Rowe, ROWE.
Okay.
You can also find my column on Search Engine Journal. As I read the column, I contribute pretty frequently to Search Engine Journal.
Yep.
That's one of my favorite publications. I just like the team there, and they're great to
Sure.
work with. You can also go to my website, PureLINQ.com, PureLINQ.com.
Okay.
And if you want to learn about our beta program, right now we're launching a beta link building program where if you have a smaller business or you just want to try out a couple of links to see if link building is, see what link building is, or dip your toes into it.
Yep.
The beta program is made for those type of people. You can go to PureLINQ.com/beta and be put on the waiting list there. And to your last question, as far as availability, right now we tend to focus on and do a lot of link building for more enterprise scale companies. We only accept 5 companies per month just because the onboarding process is very in depth. And
Sure.
we keep a pretty small, lean team, so we can't more than 5 companies a month. Right now,
Okay.
we have to onboard by the 25th of every month, so clients have to sign up by that date. Right now, we are not accepting people or any new companies rather, until May.
Okay. Sounds great. Thanks again for joining me this afternoon. And this has been the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer. Thanks again, Kevin.
Thanks, Bill. Bye.
Thanks.